Now we're going to be going to the lab here in just a second. We'll actually watch the boot up of a Cisco router for the first time. There is something that you should know about the connectivity to the router that actually allows you to see the router configurations and be able to subsequently configure it. The way that we're going to connect to the router is going to be through what's called a console cable. What a console cable is actually what looks very similar to an RJ45 unshielded twisted pair Ethernet cable, as you see here. But you see that the two ends are actually rolled, and if you notice the color patterns here, well, they're exact opposites. So 1 to 8, 2 to 7, 3 to 6, and so on. Every one of these pins is going to be flipped over. That's going to allow us to plug one end of it into a COM port plug. This is a terminal connection, and then plug the other end into either the console or the auxiliary port of a router. Now, every Cisco router is going to have at least a console port. The console port allows you to use a terminal connection, something like HyperTerminal or TerraTerm, to be able to make an actual connection, a VT100 connection to the router for configuration. Some of your routers will also have an auxiliary port. Now, most of the larger routers, such as the 2800 or higher, will have an auxiliary port. The difference between the auxiliary port and the console port, though, they are accessed in much the same way. The auxiliary port actually has modem control pins. And the idea here is that I can plug a modem into the auxiliary port and then plug the modem into a phone line, and I can actually dial into the router and be able to do the same configuration I could if I was plugged into the local console cable. So we're going to have here, in this case, my PC. I currently have a console terminal cable plugged into a COM1, and this console cable is then plugged into our router via the console port. And I'm now going to use the terminal emulation program in the lab to gain access to this router so we can watch its boot sequence.